So yeah, like Ronan said, my name's Sabrina D'Angelo. I work with Q4PR in Dublin, and we work with the Heritage Council promoting all of their funding initiatives, their events, and their various works. Now, a big part of that is obviously Heritage Week. This is my second year promoting it with them, and I am just as excited as I was the first year. So just kind of further on to what Ronan said. So traditional media, and by that I mean like your local paper, your radio station, and their corresponding websites are still incredibly important when it comes to getting our news out there. And we hear all the time about how people are getting their news on social. And while that still has a really key role to play, and my colleague Jennie's going to talk about that, we're very, very lucky in this country to have such a robust network of local news outlets, and it's a network that we should be utilizing. Um, so there's a few key reasons why local media is so effective. It reaches a broad audience. Not everyone is on TikTok, and about 2.2 million of us tune into our local radio stations every single day. So it's a huge reach rate in our community. Local media is exactly that. It's local. Journalists understand the communities they serve, and they know what matters to the people who read their papers, and they're highly trusted, more so than I think than our national media. And coverage, anything that you'd send in from a press release that is covered on national media is completely free to you. So it doesn't hurt to send something in. So, how to get the media's attention, what news resonates, what kind of stories are they looking for? So, they're looking for something that's impactful and timely. They're looking for news, obviously. And they always look for something that's community centered and locally relevant, something with a human voice. And when I say that, they mean people focused stories, who's involved, who's leading it, who does it affect? And I can help you draw that out in terms of your communication. And they also look for a clear call to action, do we want people to attend something? Do we want people to sign up to something? Do we want people to visit a website? The good news is that every part of what makes a story relevant and is applicable to all of us by the nature of our events and by the nature of Heritage Week. All of this applies. It's just the whole process is just getting it out there and making sure that's really, really clear. So I can help you to make sure your communication emphasizes that. So the first piece to talk about is what is our message? So before we write down anything, before we send anything, it's always really helpful to define these key messages. What is my event about? What do I want people to know? What do I want people to do? And when you're shaping these messages, just remember to use clear, accessible, jargon-free language. Speak directly to your audience. Let them know that National Heritage Week is for everyone. Emphasize if your event is free, that it's fun, and that it's welcoming. Highlight something that makes your event newsworthy. Is it the first year you're running it? Is it the 10th year you're running it? Does it have to do something that's been in the news? It's something to do, the census, the 1926 census was a massive news story this year. Is it something connected to that? And even if it's not, just remember that you can link that story in with National Heritage Week. As Ronan mentioned, it's the largest cultural festival in Ireland. So that's already our news moment. So I would write down your messages nearly in like a bullet point list just to get them out, get them on paper. And these will become the foundation of everything you write, whether that's on social media or on a press release. So you can just pull it as you need it, like a checklist. So after we have our messages, we're going to craft a press release. So this is the way we communicate with media. This is the way we reach media. It's kind of like a media alert that we'd send. And journalists will use this written alert to either craft their own articles or sometimes they just copy and paste. So the most important thing to remember in a press release is the first paragraph, and that would essentially have the five W's: the who, what, when, where, and why. So this lets the journalist quickly understand what the story is. And then further on from the five W's, it's always really good to have a strong, clear headline, supporting quotes and information that add a bit of color to the event and really explain what's going to happen besides the five W's. And you can see that in action in a couple of slides. And this quote also that's where our human voice can come in. It could be from yourself or someone involved, and personally inviting people along, explaining why your event matters and they can expect. Again, a few more details to add color and context, and then clear contact details in case the journalist wants to get in touch with you or has any questions. So we can look at this in action at the moment. I'm not obviously going to read the whole thing, but just in the first paragraph, As part of Heritage Week 2026, one of Ireland's most iconic sites, Dublin Castle, will host a special after-hours event on Saturday, August 15th, titled Echoes Beneath the Earth: Secrets of the Castle Grounds. This immersive evening experience invites visitors to explore the often hidden layers of history beneath Dublin Castle, from its Viking foundations and medieval defences to its role as a seat of British rule and its place in contemporary Ireland. So, in our first paragraph, we have the who, Dublin Castle and Heritage Council. We have the what, the event, the Echoes Beneath the Earth. We have the when, the 15th of August, National Heritage Week 2026. Where, Dublin Castle, and why, to explore the hidden history of Dublin Castle. And then further on, we can see our attention grabbing headline, our additional details, our quote for myself, a call to action, where people can find out more, where they can engage, and then the contact details at the bottom. And you'll also see within the press release that I tie the event into the National Heritage Week story. So it's not just the individual event. You can see in the third paragraph, I talk about National Heritage Week as Ireland's largest celebration. I talk about all the events that took place last year. I talk about the theme in the first paragraph, Heritage at Risk. And all of these messages, all of these paragraphs are on the National Heritage Council website. So you can just pull and use them as needed. So I would always include the date at the top so journalists know when it was sent and when it should run. When emailing this to somebody, use the headline as your subject title. Copy and paste the press release in the body of the email. A journalist won't open an attachment. They're incredibly time poor and they just won't open it. Um, and then if you're sending it to multiple people, just remember to BCC. A journalist won't want to write something if he sees that a rival paper also has the same press release. So BCC, 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 and then you can just send from there. So we have our press release, and who are we sending those to? Um, sorry. So Irish media are actually incredibly transparent about their contact information. You just have to know where to look. So the first thing you can do is read your local paper. Usually in one of the early inside pages, you'll find the editorial contact details. Also flip through the paper. If you notice that someone's name keeps popping up as an author for local events or cultural events or local history, they might be a good person to engage with. So it's just kind of a judgment on who you target. You don't want to send it to the sports journalist. So just kind of bear in mind when you're looking through your paper. The websites also usually have an outlet contact detail page. And then if you can't find anything, pick up the phone, give them a buzz. Say you have a story and you're just asking where would be the best email to send it to. Local news teams are usually quite small, so even if you send it to the general email address, it will get to the right place. And that's just a couple of examples of where you can find it. So the Meath Chronicle, Limerick Today with Joe Nash, and I think that's the Drogheda Independent. So these are kind of best in show. Not all of them will look like this, but just kind of giving you a couple of examples of what they might look like. So then the timing of your release, that really matters. And I've given it a couple of given it a good amount of thought. We're in mid-May now. You're planning your event. I think by the end of May, June, maybe no later than July, when you have your event and you have the details sorted, I would send a release. I would send a release just to let them know it's happening, give them time to plan. If they're working on an article, in the coming months about all Heritage Week events happening in the locality, they'll have that information already. So just let them know. I would do another press release maybe a week or two before National Heritage Week, again, just to remind them, and then follow up a bit closer to your event with a media inviting them to attend if they want to. Again, this will just remind them about your earlier press release and then get the added bonus of maybe having a journalist come along. This kind of circumstance, this next point, but I just want to make you aware of editorial deadlines. A lot of local papers only publish once a week. So just be mindful of that. And they all vary. But if your local paper publishes on a Thursday, their deadline might be Wednesday. So if you send something on a Thursday, that's not going to get looked at until the following week. So just be mindful of that. That's why I want you to send multiple press releases, just so we can kind of circumnavigate that. But just to be aware. And then I usually send it around mid-morning, 11 or lunchtime when they'll be at the desk, but it doesn't really matter if you're sending a bunch. And then this is just an example of a media invite. It's kind of a shorter press release that you can send, in the few days leading up to the event, just to see if they want to come along. The who, the when, the where, and then again the RSVP. And I just want to touch on acknowledging your partners in your communication where it's relevant. So this could be the Heritage Council, local authorities, funders, a wider group or wider network that your group could be part of. This builds goodwill and it helps place your event within the wider national story. Again, if you're doing that in your communication already, you might not need to do this, but I just wanted to make you aware of it. There's no hard and fast rule. You can include logos at the bottom, or again, you can reference this in either your press release or below in the notes to editor. And then considering collateral, um, journalists love having a picture to go with a story, especially local stories. So you might already have photos for previous years. So use high quality images, use a photo that tells a story, and always include a caption and an image credit. So that caption will go under the notes to editor. So you'll have, the press release will end, notes to editor, your contact details, and then a photo caption. And this can just be, who's pictured, where they're pictured, what they're doing, something very simple. Always make sure you have permission from people to use photos, especially if anyone's under 18. Make sure you have explicit permission that they're okay with their image being sent out. And again, please don't use AI images. I think a no image would be better than using an AI image. If you don't have an image from a previous year, maybe you have something that is somehow related to your event that they could use, but journalists don't want to see AI images. Um, so yeah, I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Jenny. I hope that was helpful, but then if you have any questions, just let me know at the end of the session.